Frozen Blood by Cassandra Davenport. Why is this so hard? Shouldn't this be instinctual? I'm a predator. Every other predator gets their hunting skills naturally. Why should this be any different? I sulked, standing there looking down at the mess of what was once my brand new denim skinny leg jeans and the tight-fitting white tank top I had bought to match it. I was pretty. I knew that, and I loved to show it every day. Making guys take notice and watch me as I passed was something I would never get used to, but that made me love it all the more. I was never the pretty one, never the one that claimed the attention of the room, but 7 nights ago I woke up and everything was different. 7 nights ago I became a predator. Other predators are born, not made. There is a big difference between the two. Hence, why you are standing here looking like a rabid animal. But of course, a beautiful one, Michael said. Ah, Michael, my first victim, so to speak. Though unlike most, I caught him whilst I was still human. While I was still that naive little girl who thought unicorns existed and Daddy was always right. A stupid child who never thought anyone could be so dangerous. That was until I met Michael. The new guy to town, the new guy to my advanced chemistry class. No one entered that class without catching my eye. I was the best, and I was not about to lose that to someone without knowing who they were and where they had come from. And so I met the first step towards the end of my life. I introduced myself. Don't patronize me, Michael. I'm not one of your silly little pets, I said coldly. Turning to face him, I knew my eyes were burning, and my teeth had extended to make little points that would show just below my top lip. My lips, of course, were bright blood red, the correct term there being blood. My latest victims, to be precise. A young male who thought I was his catch of the century. He hadn't been wrong, though I'm sure he would have done better. Any other woman would count as better, considering how he lay dead at my feet. Just another empty carcass for the Georgetown Police Department. And yet I must look after you, night in and night out. He spoke without thinking. He'd gone too far. Saying I needed looking after was not true. He wanted to. Time and time again I had told him to leave, to get out of my town, and yet here he was, still standing by and trying to teach me how to live like the predator he made me. You don't have to be here, Michael. How many times do I have to tell you? You want out? Then leave. I spat the last words out. Michael flinched. I knew he wouldn't leave. Not while I still existed. The ruthless new murderess who had everyone's lives in a stir. The poor young Clarissa, a science freak, early high school graduate, in other words, invisible in every aspect to the human eye except for her daddy. Of course, she was the apple of his eye, and the poor little thing disappeared without a trace one night after attending a science fair. The town had held a beautiful memorial service for her, which they all attended and said pretty little lies about how they all thought she was the most amazing friend they had ever met. However, over half of them she had never even met, yet somehow they were best friends. But all of them just let her father fade away. They all watched as he slowly killed himself, and for that they would all pay. I can't do that. I created you. I'm responsible for what you do, he said, looking out towards the street that lay beyond us, where the thoughtless, naive teenage girls threw themselves at their boyfriends who were acting all tough. I bet if they came face to face with me, the new me, they would run and leave those girls as defenceless as a wounded gazelle in the midst of hungry lions. And when you say created me, you mean attempted to kill me and realized my blood held the gene that changed me as soon as bitten like someone like you. I'm not ruthless, Clara. You are. Not ruthless? Michael, do remind me of my age. I tend to forget these minor details, considering how I will never have another birthday. how I will never age again, or see the day that my 18th birthday comes. You were a mistake. You weren't supposed to be there. The science fair? I was a science freak. You knew that. Where else would I have been? I met in the alleyway with that guy. That guy? He was the only guy that ever paid me any attention besides my father. He was my only friend. Friend, he scoffed. That pissed me off. And there were many things about me that pissed me off. But the one thing I would not have was him running down the only guy in my school that had time of day to have anything to do with me. The one guy that treated me like I existed. I'm warning you, Michael. You say another word about Trey, and I will kill you. You know I can, because unlike you, I don't care about anyone anymore. I know. And I'm already dead inside, Clara. I was over this conversation before it had even started. I'd heard it 1,000,000 times before. He had told me this in the hopes that I would curve my ways and come running lovingly into his arms. Story of a forbidden love. One man who had followed a single girl throughout all her lifetimes, only to lose her over and over again to some kind of illness. Only this time the sickness was immortality, given to me by the man himself, Michael Bazarov, my Russian lover. Walking away was becoming something of a ritual for me and him. He would come and try to clean up my mess, and I would walk away, leaving him standing in the dark, watching after me. I'd been immortal for 7 days now, and still I hate that I'm alive, while my family is dead. And no matter how hot a guy is, that is something that is not easily forgiven, if ever. He killed Trey in front of me. It was a given fact that he did not know I was there. But still, he shouldn't have hunted my best friend when he claimed to love me. And then he tried to kill me because he didn't like my seeing his true nature, resulting in me turning into a vampire like him, and essentially killing my father. No, that is not something I can forgive. If I live forever, then he will have an eternity of watching me walk away from him. An eternity of knowing I hate him. My life was a mess at this moment, frozen in the form of a 16-year-old girl. Thankfully, I had developed early in life, which meant I had great curves, and long, luscious brown hair that framed my sharp jawline, and it brought out the deep, dark brown eyes that I had inherited from my dad's side of the family. I had learned to use my assets well. I knew the guys liked it when I wore tight-fitting clothes and showed the skin on my stomach. I had recently had my belly button pierced, which I knew drew the eyes of many guys. Some days, when I wanted to reel in a few of them, I'd go all out. Mini skirt and tight-fitting tank top that was way too small to cover my entire tummy, leaving about an inch above my belly button bare to my hip bones where my miniskirt sat. I had effectively been the end to about 38 lives, 39 tonight, though I'm sure they would find the body anywhere but where I left it, and all the cameras that tied me to him would just magically disappears. Favours of men like Michael. What he didn't know was, I wanted to be caught. I wanted to be killed. I wanted this misery to end. I still lived in my father's house. I had killed anyone who stepped foot in it to try and make it their own. This house would never be theirs. It would always be my home. It had been 2 days since my dad's funeral. It hadn't been much at all, just a cheap, empty plot to dump his body, because there was no one willing to pay for anything dearer. His mother was too old to afford anything, and his sister was too busy shooting up her money in drugs to even consider burying her brother in a decent area. And of course there is me. I couldn't do anything because the funeral place is only open during the day, so no way of turning up and picking anything out. Plus, if I just turned up again, questions would be asked, questions I would not be able to answer. Things in this world sucked. I hated all these people just walking around with their whole lives in front of them, not one stopping to think of those who had had theirs cut short unfairly. Not one person in this town to stop to think of me after the memorial, and only a handful continued to mourn the loss of Trey. I hadn't known where I was heading when I walked away from Michael earlier. I just needed to get away, but I knew now. I was going to visit Trey. I needed to talk, and I could still feel him hanging around a bit. But I couldn't see him, couldn't feel him, and I knew I never would again. But still, the feeling gave me comfort. It was 3 in the morning when I arrived at the small private graveyard his family had laid Trey to rest in. The moon was halfway to going down, and I only had a couple of hours before I knew I would have to leave. I never wanted to leave when I was here, and time again I had tempted fate, staying until the rays of the sun were just brimming the horizon. Part of me begged the rays for death, but the other half of me had a strong sense of self-preservation, making it nearly impossible to kill myself. Tonight I knew I would try again. I would tempt fate yet again, and again, at first touch of light, I would run to the cover of the buildings nearby to hide out the day. Walking through all the different graves made me miserable. It did all the time to think that people could be cruel enough to vandalize the final resting place of the dead. There was one thing in this world that could make me angrier than what had happened between me and Michael, and that was catching someone disturbing the resting place of Trey. And that is exactly what happened this night. 2 stupid little teenagers, about 14 years old, were doing things well beyond their years, right on top of his grave. Red tinged my vision. I walked straight over to where they were laying on the blanket, both half naked, both too wrapped up in their own personal lives to notice the person that was going to end everything that they thought mattered tonight. Tonight, they were going to die for the crime they are committing. I ripped the guy up by the back of the collar, spinning him to face me in the same motion. I seen the fear rip across his face, and heard the girl let out a blood-curdling scream, which would have made my heart beat faster had it been able to beat. As it was, the red in my vision just got more defined. A hand closed around my throat just as I was about to bite the boy's neck. It promised warmth of blood. The hand ripped back hard. The person was strong, too strong to be human, which only left one person it could be. Michael. I growled loud as the boy stumbled from my grip back to where the girl was screaming in terror. Run home. Fast, Michael told them. Once they left, his grip became a little softer, not looser. I tried to get away, but he was so strong, and he had the best of me. I lashed out with my feet, hoping to catch him by surprise and make his grip waver. But it didn't work. Michael pulled me back again, pulling me off balance so I landed against his chest. He was now the only thing that held me up. It was then that I felt it, the presence of someone else. Someone was standing behind us. Michael? Who else is here? I can feel them, I asked, concerned by the fact that he had sent the children away, but was not even bothering about the person standing right behind him. An old friend. He's here to help me. With what? You. One word is all he said, and I froze. I knew he was serious. The rage drained from me, and was replaced instantly by the fear of death. I had taken many lives, seen the light fade from their eyes and the colour drain from their face. I had tempted death many times, but I had never actually thought about what would happen if I die. Where would I go? Is there anything after death for someone like me? He emerged from the darkness and was wearing all black. His eyes were clear crystal blue, set off by the bright blonde hair. But his eyes held years beyond his looks. I could tell he wasn't a vampire. Like myself, his heart was beating, but his youth was a lie. This guy was old, really old, and I could tell, and he scared the crap out of me. I tried to back away, but just ran further up against Michael's chest, who was standing firm and not backing away. I could feel my breathing getting faster and faster. It was an unnecessary thing, breathing, but it was all I could do not to scream from this guy. He hadn't said anything or done anything but watch me, and I was already terrified of him. "Who are you?" I whispered, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. "That is not your concern, young one. Your concern is what I'm doing here." His voice paralyzed me in fear. I could hear the ice in it. This voice was something I was used to giving, not receiving. Since I had turned, I had not feared anything, but what this man promised, I did not want at all. "Michael, please." "Do not listen to her, Michael. She is talking out of fear now." "Of course I'm scared. I'm being rendered useless, and you. Now you're something else. What are you?" "Your worst nightmare, my dear. And yes, I know what you fear the most. Living forever, but not being able to show how much you hate Michael for what he did to you. Oh yes, I can feel it all. Your fear of me, your contradicting feelings of Michael, hate versus love, and then your pain for Trey." "Do not speak of Trey. You know nothing of him." "I beg to differ. I am Trey's grandfather of sorts. Do you remember what Trey had told you that night? Yeah, a crazy tale of riches. The term was warlock, and it wasn't a tale, child. I am a warlock, and I have been asked here to kill you. But I also know that is Michael's worst fear, so I discussed it with him and came up with an alternative. I'm going to paralyze you. Michael will hold the key to undo the spell, but until he does, you will be frozen, able to hear, feel, but unable to move or talk. Take this time to remember those you murdered." His voice softened before he continued, walking up and putting his hand on the side of my face and looking into my eyes. "I wish things were different, child. I've been hoping to meet you for years. I'm sorry for what happened with Trey. That was not meant to happen in front of you. And most of all, I'm sorry for your father." A single tear slipped from my eye. Since everything happened, I had never stopped to think of my father, or of Trey. And what would they think of me? What would they think of what I had become? Looking into the eyes of this man and seeing the full disappointment made me wonder, and that crushed me. I felt the pain rip through me and tried hard to set my face. But this guy was doing something. I could feel myself losing control of my own body. My arms had gone numb, and so had my legs. I knew now that Michael was the only thing holding me up. I felt his hand slide down as he picked me up into a cradle position against his chest. Slowly, I noticed I had lost control over every part of my body. I could not move. The only part of my body I could move were my eyes. So I turned them from the old man to one I knew. I looked at Michael. There was pain there in his eyes. I could feel him holding me tenderly, but that did not go with the look in his eyes. They were full of misery. Slowly he lifted his eyes from mine and looked to where the strange man was standing. I could hear them talking about how to unlock what he had done to me, what Michael had to do to set me free when he thought I was ready. And for now, I agreed. I was not ready. This was a good punishment. I needed this. I was too angry at the world to think rationally at all, but having my fate in the hands of Michael scared the hell out of me. Michael carried me to his house, where he laid me on a big double bed and covered me with his doona. He sat on the bed beside me and ran his fingers through my hair, pushing it out of my eyes. I locked eyes with him and seen a tear slip from the corner of his eye. He was in so much pain. I wondered if it was from having to do this to me, or from seeing me this way.
I'm so sorry, Clara. I never meant for this to happen, but you can't be like this. I need you to live. I will let you go, I promise. But not today and not tomorrow. But I will be here with you. I won't leave you. I promise, Clara. I love you, and I'm so sorry. Gently, he leant forward and kissed my forehead, before looking at me again and saying, I know you hate me now, but I hope it won't be forever. The end.